Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M, the Hungry Dominican. I'm joined on set by Martins Grullon, co-founder of Bronx Native. So let's get back to a few things that we talked about. I don't want to forget them. But before we do that, since we just came back from that segment,
Yes.
we got to talk food.
Talk to me.
And I've got three very important questions I want to ask you. Okay, number one, mangu or mofongo?
Mango.
Excellent. Okay, do you pronounce it spaghetti or espaghetti?
Spaghetti.
Good answer.
Yeah.
And the
Funny
third one,
question,
which I think is the most. This is how I'm gonna know your character,
All
right?
right, let's go.
Tostones or maduros?
Tostones.
Oh, my man.
Yep. I'm gonna keep it a buck, man. A
Yo,
lot of
3
people
for
go,
3.
That's a vibe. Thank you, bro. But those are some tough, good questions that should be like the essential questions. Like when you you meet a girl,
Right.
you meet anyone. I got 3 questions for you. Let's go. Tostones or maduros.
Mangu or mofongo, spaghetti or espaghetti?
Yep. Those are good.
Beautiful.
But yeah, you know
Perfect.
me. You know me now.
So we were talking about the Bronx Native Market,
Yes.
and that makes me want to talk to you about the open mics that you host.
Yes.
Can you tell me some of the artists you've had on your open mics?
So bi-weekly we host an open mic in our shop, right? And it's open to the public, my man.
Beautiful.
Free to the public. We kind of just create this vibe of these up and coming artists that come in and perform. A lot of them have been, first time performing. They're spoken word artists, they're hip hop artists, they're R&B artists, they're singers, rappers, all these things. They connect with each other, they collaborate. So it's dope to see that synergy. We've been doing it for about close to 2 years now.
Wow.
The open mics, and very successful. We have something called Bronx Native Records too that is part of the
Tell me about that.
it's part under the umbrella. So Bronx Native Record, we saw that we were doing a lot of things involving music, right? The Bronx being the mecca, birthplace
Of
of
course.
culture, hip hop,
course.
salsa, all these things.
Yeah.
Only right for us to involve ourselves with music, right? Every event we had performers, right? Every we were being called to do performances in other spots. We had our own artists, right? So we were kind of building this thing very organically. And I said, hey, let's create this thing called Bronx Native Records. Essentially starting as a way for us to help these artists even more, right? We've done the open mics. We've had open studio sessions, right, where we rent out a studio and artists can just come in and
That's
record,
awesome.
right on the spot. We're actually working on a project which is going to come out soon, a mixtape compilation album, all Bronx-based artists, different genres, and we're gonna be putting it in one tape. We're gonna be recording it. It's gonna be very dope, very special. So that's coming up. That's one of the things that are coming up in 2020, and is part of what we're doing. You know what I mean? So
Very
it's
cool.
fit really well with everything else.
So staying with the theme of music, you were at the 46th anniversary celebration of hip hop. How was that?
46 years.
46
my man.
years.
Hip hop.
Wow.
Most influential genre out here.
1520 Sedgwick Avenue.
Yes, indeed. Not only a music genre, but a lifestyle, man.
Absolutely.
Mainstream, most heard
It's
genre.
I think it's the culture. It's the only culture,
it's,
right?
it's the culture. It's just
Yeah,
like
100%.
hip hop. When people say like, "Yo, for the culture," but what really is, it's just hip hop has influenced that, and it's become so big. And happy to say that it came from the South Bronx, boogie down Bronx. You know the vibes. So yeah. They had this event. Honoring and awarding. A lot of the old school pioneers, right? And for a lot of y'all that that don't know, a lot of the pioneers of hip hop still live in the Bronx.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
do
that's
not
true.
get the recognition that they should, right? Because they kind of just did their thing, right? And hip hop went all over the world
Yeah.
and became this billion-trillion-dollar business, right? But yeah, we were awarding them. It's for me, it's always great to be part of that because Bronx Native is a brand that combines the old school and the new school, right? I represent, new, what's happening now, pop culture, but never forgetting where we came
Right.
from
Right.
and the people that created this whole thing for us. So much love to hip hop,
That's
man.
amazing. So
Yes.
another thing you have under your Bronx Native umbrella is BX Writers.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
BX writer. So I have a partner. His name is Josue Cáceres,
Mm-hmm.
childhood friend,
Mm-hmm.
and born and raised for him my whole life. And he is a writer, right? So he works with me in Bronx Native. And I remember we chatted about the literary scene in the Bronx, right? Which is also, something that is coming up. We got the only bookstore in the Bronx, the Lit Bar that just
Right.
opened up a block away from the shop. We have things like the Boogie Down Books, all these artists, spoken word writers and stuff that are coming up right now in the Bronx. So him being a writer, he came up with this thing called BX Writer, right, which is a platform for Bronx writers and creatives that are in the literary scene. Right now, we just put our calling for writers, right? So we got 70 plus writers that we're gonna be putting into this
That's
physical
incredible.
book,
Wow.
right? Everything from creative writers to poems, everything. So right now we're making the book. It's gonna come out soon, and it's gonna be a very a book that symbolizes togetherness, right? Symbolizes what our people are doing now, right? And the writing scene and stuff like that. So we're very excited about that. Definitely check it out. For any updates, follow BX Writers and of course Bronx Native. But that's coming out soon, bro.
That's amazing. That's one of the things I mean, you do a lot of great things, but that was one of the things that for me personally, when I saw you were doing the BX Writers, that really spoke to me because growing up, I've always wanted to be a writer. I love writing. I'm working on my own things as well.
That's what's up.
But I didn't feel like I had a lot of, and maybe I wasn't looking, but I didn't have a lot of people that were on my same level
Yeah.
when it came to being Dominican, wanting to be a writer, living in this country all my life, trying to like connect with DR, and sort of explaining myself and writing down my thoughts, and then I see what you're doing with BX Writers, and I see this old generation of Latinos and people who are just. I feel like because of social media and because of what you're doing, there's this platform to express yourself, not doubt yourself, not think that there's nobody else like you out there
Definitely.
who wants to sort of share their own stories,
Yeah.
the way that you're allowing people to have their platform. Which again, like for me, it's like, how does that make you feel? Like you're offering all of these things to people at such a young age because you yourself didn't have these things, right?
Yes.
So that just must make you feel incredible. I mean, you have to have a moment where sometimes you're like,
It's pretty lit. I'm gonna be honest,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
My life is
you have
incredible.
to, you have to accept, you have to own that, right?
It's incredible. Doing, anyone who does what they love,
Yes.
right? And is having an impact doing what they love. I think that's incredible. For me, one of my biggest accomplishment, I tell this to everyone, is connecting entrepreneurship, creativity, and community, right,
Yes.
into one thing, which is Bronx Native, right? I'm an entrepreneur, business person. I'm doing this. Bronx Native is a business, right?
Right.
I am also a creative, right? So I'm expressing myself. I'm able to do different mediums. If it's not film, it's clothing, design, this and that, and then community, right? Which is things like the BX Writer book,
Right.
Bronx Native Records. But you hit it right in the dot when you said representation, my man.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
That's definitely important.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Let's continue with that when we come back from the break. Guys, grab yourselves a snack. Foodie Down Bronx. We'll be right back.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. Thank you for joining me in Bronx Native. I'm Maurice Grullon. So we last left off on representation, and that reminds me that you are at the Bronx Night Market representing your brand.
Yes, indeed.
So tell me a bit about the Bronx Night Market.
The Bronx Night Market, we've been with them from the start, from the first one that they did when they started last year. And I think it's incredible, right, to take the Fordham Plaza, right? This
Which is a great space,
which is
yes.
an amazing space,
Absolutely.
right? So much traffic, so much people, diversity, all this stuff, and to put all these amazing vendors, not only merch and stuff, but food, right? Incredible food vendors, entertainment, right? I think is and I've said this before, is an incredible. If you wanna feel, taste, hear, wear the Bronx, go to the night market. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because
Right.
you get to experience all these things. You get to buy some merch. You get to eat some food from local vendors. You get to hear some local talent. So it's kind of just like this festival, market vibe that has everything that encapsulates what the Bronx really is.
So for those who don't know, when does the Bronx Night Market happen?
Saturdays.
Saturdays.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so it's every Saturday up until a certain point. I'm assuming September or October.
Yes,
is
they
around-
kind of put it a little. They've been getting more and more dates.
Okay.
So yes, but they've been doing dope. Yeah.
So when people walk up to your area, what can they expect to find?
They can expect to find some Bronx base merchandise, bro.
Awesome.
Yeah, so all of our merch, from t-shirts to hats, hoodies. We also sell books. We sell other accessories as well. So you get to see everything that we have to offer, right, in our shops. It's kind of like we're popping up in the market, right? So we bring a little bit of the shop and put it right in Fordham Plaza.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I saw a clip of yours that you were being interviewed by Bronx 12, and you had said that you saw Drake's Hotline Bling, and you saw the
Yes.
font,
Yes.
right? And that inspired you to do one of your shirts that has just the Bronx, the Bronx, the Bronx.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that you live in the borough that hip hop was born in, and you as a millennial are now taking examples from hip hop itself
That's
to
intense.
create your own brand? It's like
Yeah.
this cycle.
It's kind of is a cycle,
Right?
But yeah,
Right?
yeah, my man. We use a lot of pop cultural elements in our clothing.
And again, as you should, because
Yeah.
it's from the Bronx. This
Yeah.
is all from the Bronx.
And it did originate in the Bronx. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So yeah, using pop cultural elements, using things from Bronx history, things that we see on a day-to-day basis, and just implementing that with good design, good marketing, good branding, and just putting it out there, man.
Yeah. Now let me ask you. This is a subject, of course, that's very tricky, but again, you're living in, like you said, what a time to be alive. All these experiences and all these
Yes.
things are happening in the Bronx. What are your thoughts about gentrification? And I don't mean to get into something that's so heavy that we can't
Yeah.
ever have like a final,
Yeah.
conclusion to this subject. But you are living in a time right now where the Bronx is going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
Where authenticity is the most important thing, especially if you're from the borough, right? Because nobody wants to be seen as they're just sort of faking it,
Definitely.
right? So, what are your thoughts on gentrification? How do you, well, first of all, do you embrace it? Do you understand that it's something that is inevitable, or do you get pushback from people who say maybe, you're the reason why gentrification is becoming faster and faster, or do you just sort of say to yourself, you know what, this is the times, this is what's happening?
Deep question. Deep. So gentrification, I always tell everyone, we're not against change, and we're not, we want our people, we deserve a better way of life, right? We deserve the good things that our borough have been kind of just the resources, all these things, businesses, we've kind of just been thrown to the side and not been giving. So we're not against change, and we're not against, good things in our neighborhoods, but we are against displacement, right? We've worked so hard, and blood, sweat, and tears, right? To be displaced, to be like,
Right.
oh, the rent's too high. Sorry. Thanks
Yeah.
for being here through the times when the Bronx is burning, but now you can't even live here, right? That's crazy for me, right? So for us, creating Bronx Native was, and there was, it was us taking kind of a stand, like, look, yes, we're the Bronx. Yes, we have all of this to offer.
Right.
No one's gonna take what is ours, right? This is our home. And we continue to, do that, fight that battle every day, right? Through the things that we're doing. And yeah, dude.
The reason I ask is because, again, it's a very tricky subject, but I applaud the things that you do and the fact that you do have this merchandise that does have the Bronx insignia on hats, on T-shirts, beautiful designs, creative designs. You're embracing where you're from, and I think that again, it all ties in with authenticity. If you're doing it with good intentions, and you're doing it with the intent to send out the message of this is the Bronx, this is who we are, this is what we do, and you're from the Bronx, which I think it's the most important thing. I think for me, it's like you can't talk about the BX if you're not from the BX in that sense, right? And so I do think about a lot of younger entrepreneurs who again might deal with maybe the older folk thinking, hey, you're bringing too much attention to the Bronx in such a way that creates
So what? So we
problems.
can't. That is a thing, and there's backlash. Like, oh, what are you doing? But then does that mean we can't really express ourselves? Does it mean we can't do the things, cool things in our neighborhoods because we're scared of these things that are happening or could happen? I always, I think the Bronx is different than the other boroughs. Definitely, we're the last frontier. But we've seen what happened to Brooklyn, seeing what's happening to Harlem, and we are cut from a different cloth.
Absolutely.
We are fighters. We're ambitious. We're hardworking, and we're gonna do whatever it takes, and we're gonna do things differently. So to change that, to not be what these other boroughs have become, and stick with the culture and the flavor and what are people,
I think if anything, that's the one thing that I've sort of I felt, living again, coming back to the Bronx and seeing a lot of business people coming from the Bronx, that it is, to me at least, it feels very sort of way more authentic than any other borough I've lived in, because you do have the blood, sweat, and tears, and
people
it's
smile here, man.
Yeah.
They say hi to you.
It's I'm telling you, man, going back to like the beginning of the conversation, the narrative that I was told about the Bronx is so different from actually experiencing the Bronx. There's so much positivity here. There's so much beauty.
Community, togetherness.
Communities
incredible.
are incredible here. And again, it's like these things that like shouldn't be said, but they have to be said because no one really kind of gives you that spin about it, And so, I just got to say that, before we wrap all this up, you have been doing a great job. I've been a fan of yours for a minute. I know you and I have tried to like connect in the past, but you're a busy man, which I love that. I'd rather have you tell me I can't do it right now, because I got all these things going on, than like never mind, and then I'm like, man, what is this dude? What is he even doing? You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you talking to me. I'm really happy that I had you on for the entire hour, and if I could have you for another hour, that would be amazing. Cause
you have me.
There's
me.
Give yourself to me.
No, dude. Definitely a pleasure, my man. Like I said, I've been following you for a minute now. You've been doing your thing. Every time I look at your page, I get hungry.
Good.
Food.
I'm doing my job.
Bro, you're doing a good job. Okay.
Thank you, brother.
But thank you for having me. Incredible interview, and continue the success of this show. Man. Love it. Been seeing it, and much love, man.
Thank you, man.
From
Thank
a
you,
BX Dominican to another
Dominicano.
ya tú sabes. Que lo que lo wa. All right? Let's make it happen.
Thank you, man. All right, guys. Stay connected with the Moudies by following him at Bronx Native on Instagram. Well, that's all for the show. Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you to my guest today for joining us. Tune in every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. here on BronxNet Optimum 67 and FiOS 33. Also, tune in on the go at bronxnet.org and find us on YouTube. From BronxNet to the world, this is Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M. the Hungry Dominican. Remember to feed your mind, feed your body, and if you see me coming along, feed me. Adios.